Hi, this is Mike for Draft Buddy, and today I'm going to show importing projections from a website into Draft Buddy using Projection Pal. Now, in Draft Buddy, if you are familiar with it, it has a spot to hold three different projections, and then you can, do a weighted average if you like about those three sets. It comes with one preloaded. Let me just show you here. So if we go over to the position tabs, I'll start with the quarterback tab here. I've got everything bumped up so you can see it easier, hopefully. But I'm on the quarterback tab, and the light blue section are the calculations of the projections um, that are used in the cheat sheets. Used to calculate the projected fantasy points, and then the cheat sheet rankings from those. But if we scroll over here to the right, here's the detail. So here is, and you see these are not formulas. Looking at the formula bar up here as I click on these numbers. So it comes with one set of projections, okay, and that comes in this first yellow section on each of the position tabs. If I scroll further to the right, I've got stats from last year, last 8 games, and then stats from the prior 3 years, last year, 2018, 2017 in this case, and then even further to the right, I've got two more yellow sections for projections. Now there's nothing in here right now because they don't come preloaded with projections, but that's where Projection Pal comes in, a separate file that you can download to add projections to Draft Buddy. Say you want to use a different set of projections, say you want to, like I said, average projections together. This is all possible. So, but the trick is getting projections in here. And, some websites, make it easy or easier than others. Sometimes they offer a CSV or comma separated file download or an Excel download, so we can get them in here pretty easily. But the big trick is, we get the projections, we need to line them up with the players in Draft Buddy. So that involves, matching the names and copying them in here, getting them in the right order. So that's where Projection Pal comes in. So like I said, Projection Pal is a separate file you can download from the same page that you downloaded Draft Buddy. So let me find that for the 2020 season because that's the file I'm using. So it's in my Draft Buddy folder, football, Projection Pal, 2020 right here. Okay. And here we are. So I need to enable macros because it does use macros as well. Okay, and then this one is not, let me just increase the size of this. Let's go down to the tight end tab and increase the size so you can see this better. So let me custom this to 125. Okay, so that's a little bigger and hopefully more clear in the video. And I'll go back to the home on the ribbon. So, reset that. Okay, so here's just the first tab in Projection Pal, and it shows kind of the steps, or I kind of try to describe the steps here involved. But let me see if we can do that with the video. If I go to the quarterback raw tab, these are projections from another website that I've already got preloaded in here. These are from Fantasy Pros, as you can see. Now, the demonstration here, I'm going to try to get projections from CBS. And I will say up front, I haven't done this yet, so we'll see how this goes. This can be a tricky process because sometimes you got to pull the data from another website and you've got to clean the data a little bit because we need the names to be full first name, last name with no other stuff in there. So then we can match it up with the names in Draft Buddy, which are, as you know, are first name, last name, with a space in between, and nothing else. So we need an exact match of the name too. So let me just save this as a different file because we are going to try CBS. I'm going to change this to, I'm just going to add CBS on the end. Okay, we're going to copy over these projections that are here and try to get the CBS projections in. Now, there is a method of pulling them in over the internet with the query function. That sometimes work, a lot of times it doesn't. It depends on the structure of the HTML page. A a lot of times copying and pasting is going to be a better bet than the query function. But the query function is here because if it works, then great. It's more like connect to the table and hit a button. But a lot of times it does not work. So let me just say that up front. Let's take a look at our projections. So if I go over here, I've got the CBS projections, and they're in a table format, and they've got them by position, so quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, etc., which is good. We need to match them up. Let's try the query function. Let's see what happens. So what I need is the URL right here. So I'm going to highlight that, copy it, come over here to Projection Pal, and I'm going to put the URL right here and place the Fantasy Pros one. Okay. And it's a new query. I'm not refreshing an old one, so a new query. Let's see what happens. And it might be a lot of junk here because there tends to be a lot of other stuff on these web pages. That wasn't terrible, I guess. We got some pretty big name fields here. You can see I've got a lot of stuff. L. Jackson, quarterback, Baltimore. Lamar Jackson, quarterback, Baltimore. So that could be a bit of a problem because we just want Lamar Jackson. We don't want all that other stuff. But it did bring all the projections in, and it's a little bit hard to see here because it's highlighted and changed the formatting. But let me change that to automatic so we can read what it says. It brought in actually the titles too, so games played, pass attempts, pass completions, etc., etc., etc. Okay, and this is all from their web page. In fact, if the query is here, right? It took this URL. Set the query in this space inside the gray highlighted boxes that I've got here. And so if I right click on one of these cells and hit edit query, you should be able to see there's the URL. We have sometimes there's a JavaScript on the page, which there almost always is. It's going to prompt us with some things there. But here's the page inside the query. No, I don't want to continue running scripts. Nope. This is what happens as web pages become more complicated over the years. There's our table. Right there we can see it. Now it's got L. Jackson. Is that what it has on here displayed? No, it has the full name here. It might be one of those things where it's if it gets less wide, it's a developer thing. If it gets less wide, it may just show L. Jackson. Ah, look at that. So if the web page is narrow, and this goes back to kind of if it was on a phone, they don't want it as wide, the player name, so it goes to L. Jackson, and we go higher, wider, then it becomes Lamar Jackson. Interesting. So that explains why, when we pulled it in, it's got both. And this is relatively narrow, so it's got it narrow. Or it's got, sorry, the first initial, not the full name. Okay, anyways, we don't need to get into that. So I wonder if I copied it, would it do this? Would it do the same thing? It probably would. Let's try it. So that was the query. And just as a test, I'm going to try to copy some of this data. So if I went here, and I just carefully, just ahead in front of that header, if I just highlighted and copied a few rows, let's hit Control C, and back to Projection Pal, and I'm just going to put it right here, and Control V. Oh, look at that. It didn't, it didn't bring in the L. Jackson, just Lamar Jackson. Now it's got links and whatever, that's not a big deal, but that might be better than what we did with the query. So let's do that. Let me undo that, copy, go up here. We're gonna forego the query method. We're just gonna copy and paste. All right, I think that'll make it a lot easier based on what these names are showing us. Going the wrong thing. So now I want to highlight the entire thing, entire table. So just from the left of the first heading, I hold the mouse down, I'm highlighting, I'm scrolling, I'm copying the entire thing. This is a lot of quarterbacks who really don't mean much. We've got zeros down here at this point. But anyways, we'll copy them all. So I've highlighted them all, hit Control C to copy. Back to Projection Pal. Let's stick it. Remember, I have the headings. So let's stick it right here. Control V. That didn't work. Why didn't that work? Got the whole thing copied. There we go. Not sure. Sometimes things act a little funny. Doesn't want to do it right away. But there we go. So I hit Control V again. And it's got everybody. And then David Fails here. He's in here twice because we must have skipped a row somewhere. We're just going to clear him out. Okay. Now we still have a problem with these names because I've got Lamar Jackson space quarterback space Baltimore. And that is not what we want. What we want is Lamar Jackson. Because if I went to the quarterback clean tab, you can see none of these projections are pulling in. These are all lookup formulas from the prior tab. So, and it's the clean tab. You can see this looks a lot like the tab from Draft Buddy. Remember, Draft Buddy, quarterback tab, player team by, and projections. Kind of looks similar to that. I've got even the formatting the same. But it's not, it's got a bunch of errors here because this doesn't match up. So if I just manually edited this and took out the quarterback and Baltimore, then it might match up. It does. Okay, great. See that? So now it's pulling in the projections. That's not right. I haven't changed the headings yet. So it's pulling in data from the raw tab, but not necessarily in the right categories yet because these headings it has here, I need to change these headings up here. All right, we'll get to that step. Let's figure out the names first. So I need to get rid of the quarterback and the KC. So in Mahomes' case, or the quarterback and position and the team. So I already did Jackson, but I want to edit all of these individually. So what we're going to do is I'm going to highlight just the names all the way down. You go Shift, Control, and down arrow to get down to the bottom. Copy them, Control C, and I'm going to put them right over here. And actually, let's paste it as values. Okay. It cleans it up, gets rid of the links, whatever. So a little easier to work with. Now, and the reason I put it over here to the right is just so it doesn't mess up our data on the left. So let's see what we can do about this. I want to get rid of the position and the team and just have the first name, last name, which I can put back here on the left. So I'm going to use, this is highlighted, I'm going to go data, and I want to use text to columns, okay? Which means I'm going to split the data into different columns. Now, the only thing separating all this stuff, it'd be nice if there was a comma after the name before it said quarterback and team name, but it doesn't. They're all spaces. So I'm going to have to split the first name, last name as well. So I'm going to go, and it can't be fixed width. Fixed width would be the same number of spaces. They're obviously not the same number of spaces because the first names and the last names are different sizes. So I'm going to go delimited, and I'm going to split it by space. Okay, see the lines added in there? Hopefully not too small. So I'm going to split all the names by space. So I'm going to go next and finish, and now I've got it in 4 columns. Now, it might be 5 columns. If you had a player who had 2 spaces in the name, think of an example, Allen Robinson II might be, it would split that across 3 columns. So it is possible. It's a good thing to scroll your data at this point. There's one there, Robert Griffin III. Okay, has split his name and position and team across 5 columns instead of 4, because he's got 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces in there as opposed to 3. But that's the only one in this case. Now, what I said before is I want first name and last name together. So now we've split it. My clicking, scrolling around here. Let's combine these. So I'm going to go equals this cell for the first name, and sign, quote, I should say double quote, space, double quote, and last name. Bam. Okay. There's the first name, last name in one cell. I'm going to copy this. No, not C. Control C. And we're going to paste this for every other player. I won't even worry about Robert Griffin right now. Because honestly, what I can't remember is in Draft Buddy, is it Robert Griffin III or is it Robert Griffin? It might be one or the other. You know, just it's based on my database, what the names are in there. If it's not an exact match, it won't match up. Do we need the projections for Robert Griffin? Probably not. But other players like Allen Robinson, it could matter. We'll get to that later. Okay, so now I've got just the first names and last names. It's all highlighted. I'm going to copy it, go back to here, and I'm going to go paste special as values. Don't want to paste the formulas, paste the values. Okay, so now I've got just names in that first name, last name column, or player column, and we're going to see more data here. Whoa, there we go. That works. But again, like I said, they're in the wrong columns, right? Because I'm pretty sure it's not 98 rushing touchdowns or 102 rushing touchdowns. Well, let's change the columns here. So this is games, right there. Passing attempts is here. Passing completions is here. This is where it's nice to actually copy in the headings from the table, from the HTML table, because they have the columns in a different order more than we do. Okay, so this is passing yards. This is yards per game. Yards per game, we don't have a column in Draft Buddy for that, or need it in terms of calculating fantasy points, so that's an other. We'll put that as other, and then here's passing touchdowns. And this must be passing interceptions. It is. And rate, quarterback rate. Okay, that's another, as in do not import. Now we're into rushing. Rushing attempts, rushing yards, average. Even if we have an average column in Draft Buddy, do we? No, we don't. Even if we did, we could have a calculation in there anyways in Draft Buddy. We don't need to pull in that data. Rushing touchdowns, fumbles lost, fantasy points. That's another. We're not importing fantasy points from another website. Draft Buddy is going to calculate them for us. Okay, so I've got all my column headings correct, other the rest of the way. Again, let's look at the clean tab. Now the data looks correct. Looks pretty good. The only other thing here is we want to make sure we're looking at, kind of want to check the range that the clean tab is looking at. So it starts in row 3 based on this. Up here I've already got 3. And I said goes down to 106. That's even further than this goes. It actually goes to 74. Just kind of keeps it from looking up other data that might be down in your raw tab. That's a bit of a mess. Okay, and now we can copy to Draft Buddy. So because our clean tab looks okay, and I want to get this data in Draft Buddy. And again, remember, the trick here is I want to make sure it's copied to the right player row, because I've got all this other data in Draft Buddy. So, well, in here we've got, let me see, some differences. They've got Josh Allen 4th in this list. Well, we certainly don't have him 4th over here. We've got them down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, but I need his information to get in the 7th row on this quarterback tab, 7th player row. So that's where Projection Pal is a huge help. So I'm going to hit this copy to draft buddy button, basically. But let me check the file name first. So the file name I have here is Draft Buddy Football 2020 underscore 1.0 XLSM. Well, I'm actually using version 3 of Draft Buddy Football 2020 3.0. So that's a problem. That doesn't match up. So this needs to change. Just edit the cell, change it to 3. I want to put it in Site B. Okay, that's another option there. It's Site B or Site C. Presumably A is already full. That's the projections that came with Draft Buddy. You don't want to change those. So we're going to put it in, kind of the options are like, do I want to put it here? Do I want to put it here? I'm going to choose B this time, but if I already had something in B and want to save it, then I'd choose C. Okay, but it should come in here. Back to Projection Pal. So this is fine. This is fine. Go back to the Raw tab. Copy to Draft Buddy. Let's see what happens. Da, 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 da. There we go. All right, copied stuff over into Draft Buddy. And yeah, Josh Allen was 541 attempts, 9 rushing touchdowns. Draft Buddy, Josh Allen, 541 attempts, 9 rushing touchdowns. Yeah, there you go. So it looks like it lined up. Now a good check, once you're over here, is who copied in, who didn't. All right, you can see where the data is, it copied in, obviously. Where it didn't, it's got a blank row. All right, so it didn't copy in projections for Will Greer or Josh Dobbs. Why is that? It might be because the name didn't match. It might be because CBS didn't do projections for them, but it might be because the name didn't match. And obviously, in this case, not significant players, probably for your fantasy league, but it's possible you could have a blank row up here, and it would be a significant player. So then you'd want to go back, fix the player name, and then hit copy again. So let's just check for Josh Dobbs. I got a feeling maybe he is here. So if I'm here on my Raw tab again, and I search for Dobbs, no, he's not here. Okay. What about Greer? I don't know why. Greer's name's pretty common, so he's not here either. Robert Griffin was one that we weren't sure about. Scrolling down, who else? James Morgan, rookie. No. Ryan Griffin. No, even Robert Griffin is there, and that's even though we had Robert Griffin without 3 in Projection Pal knew to update him. There's some name changes here, so it looks for common name differences. So if it's Robert Griffin in the raw Draft Buddy, it has the 3rd on it. Okay, so that one's fine. That one fixed itself. What's an example? Well, I think you probably get the idea there. If you do have a blank line here, and it's a significant player you know is in the projections, probably the name didn't match. So then you'd simply go back to Projection Pal, the Raw tab, find that player, adjust the name so it matches perfectly with Draft Buddy, and hit copy again. It'll copy everything over again, including that player. Okay, so now we're all set. I've got my projections in Draft Buddy. If I want to use these projections, then I would go to the Options tab and switch over to, say, Site A 100%, then I go to Site B 100%. Okay, and then I will, to refresh the cheat sheets, it'd be compile cheat sheets again, that sort of thing. And it would update the cheat sheets based on those fantasy points. But the big point of this was using Projection Pal, getting projections off the web, And that's an example of getting the CBS projections. All right, I'll sign off. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks. Bye.